morning, everybody, and it's Dr. Zen Moffat here for our 11th episode of Clutter Talk Live. And this morning, we are joined by the lovely Clara Moore of Joy of Space, both of us in Glasgow. And later, we'll be joined by our colleague Elaine McKinlay, who is on another course, but she will join us at about 11:30. So today, hello, Clara.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Good. So I was just about to explain what we're going to chat about today. So they kind of got three main subjects that we're going to talk about today. And the first one is homelessness. And then we're going to look to gardening. And also we got a really lovely text in. I'm not sure quite when, after the last show, where we were told we always love the show. Why is it some people find it hard to declutter, yet they can if you help them? So why is it that some people find it hard to declutter, but they can if someone's with them? So that's a good thought for people to think about as we kind of go through the show, and we'll try and come up with some answers at the end. But yeah, so Clara, how was your holiday? Tell us about your holiday.
It was wonderful, thank you. Had a really relaxing time, and I did things because I wanted to, not because I felt like I should. So had spa days with the kids where we made face packs and hair conditioning treatments, bubble baths that had colours and lights in them. And I taught my son to make soup. He did some cooking. And I was showing Zem earlier, I gave us all a lockdown haircut with these nail scissors. So my son kindly did me a picture. This is his picture of himself before his haircut, and this is his picture of himself after it. So I did gardening. So I had and lots of reading and lots of naps, which was lovely. And time with friends, so walks in the park, socially distanced. And one of my friends had his 60th birthday. So we had a birthday breakfast for him in our back garden. So that was really lovely.
Can you show viewers, I'm really impressed by your haircut. Can you show viewers the back of your hair? I think it's amazing. Absolutely lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just getting big. I felt like it was like a mushroom.
So tell us a bit about the reading that you've been doing. I've also, by the way, viewers, I've had a lovely time doing some gardening as well, and can't remember what else I've been up to, but I'm more interested in the reading that you've been doing and what's really kind of spoken to you.
Well, I was really lucky enough to be given lots of books for my birthday. So friends sent me books, and friends that are more local, we did a social distance meet up. So this is one of the ones that I was given by Rainer Wynn, The Salt Path. And it's a lady who, when she's 50, she has one of the worst weeks anyone can have, because in the same week she and her husband are made homeless through no fault of their own, through an error of them submitting evidence in court for one of the husband's childhood friends, who takes them to court through a bad financial scheme that he's involved them in. So they lose their life, their home, their farm in Wales, and her husband's also given a terminal diagnosis. So they're given a week to leave their home of several decades, which is a farmhouse, which is also their income. And the bailiffs come and they're hiding under the stairs, not because they don't want to leave, they know they have to, but they're just trying to come to terms with the shock of the last week. And she spots a book that is about the southwest coast path from Somerset to Dorset via Devon and Cornwall. And so they decide in that moment, let's just go walking and wild camping rather than sleep on people's couches. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book, because it really makes us think about what is home and how important are belongings, what tethers us to ourselves, and is that belongings, is it memories, is it a place, or is it a person, or is it a feeling in yourself, or a combination of all of those things and more. Beautiful book.
That's beautiful, Clara. I like kind of playing with words, and I always sort of say to people that I work with or to Clutter Chat members, like, and in the workshops, like, be careful when you let go of your belongings that you don't let go of your sense of belonging.
Yes.
And it's how in our belongings do connect us to our sense of belonging. And it's also that choice of, well, who do I belong to and who do I want to belong to?
Mhm.
And which connections are nurturing and nourishing and which aren't? And how can I choose? Do I have a choice to like what to let go of and being in that situation? I mean, I think the book, I've started reading the book. I was recommended it by somebody, but I found it a struggle because I got it as an ebook, and I'm really not enjoying reading off my iPad. But anyway, that's maybe an excuse. But I have sort of dipped in and out, and I just think the whole idea of being forced, to let go of everything, and then making that proactive decision, we're going to go for a walk, we are going to walk it through. And there's a whole history of walking and meditative walking and pilgrimages is sort of cathartic and all that. So you've suggested some quotes that I can read. Do you want to say anything more about why it sort of speaks to you, or shall I just go ahead and read the quotes?
Well, it speaks to me. I had already read Cheryl Strayed's book Wild, which is about her walk in America along a certain pathway and the struggles and the transformative power of that for her. For me, it's a topic that affected me. My marriage broke down when my daughter was 1 and we became homeless, and it's something that can happen to us, anyone, unexpectedly. And I at the time was working for the NHS, had a job, the children were still going to school and nursery, and I was working as an occupational therapist, so every day I was speaking to people about their homes and how they were coping, and yet I was homeless, and probably nobody would have thought I was homeless. So it's something that can happen to all of us, and it really is so powerful of how it really makes us look at what is the most important thing in our lives. And for me, that was the relationship with my children. And as long as we had a roof over our head and we had our family love, so that's another reason it speaks to me.
And you've chosen some lovely quotes, which I shall read, which speak of that and about kind of really essentializing what is really important to each of us individually, and to cherishing that. There's a lovely sentence about blackberries and about roofs. So I'll read that. And I wanted to also say to viewers that if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to, I see we've got some in live chat on YouTube already. So Clara can maybe keep an eye on those whilst I read out the passages. And you can also text through. So if I put myself on bigger in the bottom corner of my screen, you can text through to 077 265 30217. That's 077 265 30217. And I shall pick it up on my old backup phone. And we can answer any questions. So any questions, anything that sits that you want to ask, we will try and answer. So I'm going to go ahead now and read some of these passages, which are really quite beautiful. So thank you, Clara, for introducing us all to this book. Here we go. Here we go. So it's Rain or Wind, and it's the Salt Path. The blackberries we'd picked along the way had been small, tart and sharp. So I took one only out of politeness, but when I put it in my mouth, it was like no blackberry I'd ever tasted. Smooth, sweet, a burst of rich claret, autumnal flavour, and in the background, faintly, faintly salt. You thought blackberries had passed, didn't you? Or you've eaten them and thought you didn't like them. No, you need to wait until the last moment, that moment between perfect and spoilt. The blackbirds know that moment, and if the mist comes right then, laying the salt air gently on the fruit, you have something that money can't buy and chefs can't create. A perfect, lightly salted blackberry. You can't make them. It has to come with time and nature. They're a gift. When you think summer's over and the good stuff has all gone, they're a gift. And the next quote. I was home. There was nothing left to search for. He was my home.
And that one is about her coming to terms with the loss of her husband and the loss of feeling in control of her life and his health diagnosis. So that was her coming to a sense of peace and what home meant to her.
And I love that first quote about the blackberries and the patience and the waiting as well. Like, you've got to wait. Sometimes I feel in life that, well, things aren't ready. You've got to wait for that apple to just be ripe enough. If you pull too soon, it's just a bit of an effort. But if you have the patience to wait for the right timing, then, the fruit is just absolutely perfect. Mm-hmm. And it's that wonderful cusp between about to go off or about to be wasted. But then I think, is it actually going to be wasted? Because if the apples drop, then the worms are going to enjoy it. So it's just kind of going to be wasted for my pleasure, but someone else, a worm, might get the pleasure. So I kind of go on to think like that. Is there anything you want to say more on that, Clara? Shall I go on to read the next one?
No, the quote about the blackberries ties very nicely into how she finishes the book in the last paragraph in the last page. Okay,
on we go. Right, I'm getting very good. I'm quite enjoying this sort of share screen business. Here we go. So we have I was home. There was nothing left to search for. He was my home. The shock of something going right is almost as powerful as when it goes wrong. We stared at each other, not knowing what to say, as if by speaking we might wake from a dream and it wouldn't be real. Then together we ran out of the cafe and leapt and shrieked in the bladderwrack beds. The young Costa Rican cafe owner came out to join us, and we danced in a circle like children. Why are we dancing? Because we have a roof. Is this a great thing? The greatest. Then we should dance more. I love that. Mm-hmm. I just think that celebration of the small, not really the small things. I mean, I kind of say to clients, you've got a roof over your head. It's protecting you from the rain. It's amazing. Let's be, just sort of be, just say thank you, for this wonderful, all the people that made the roof, that built the roof, that have put it together. And when you've been without a roof, to then have a roof and to just have sheer joy about it. It must be a wonderful, wonderful feeling.
Yeah, and that part of them dancing for joy, it was part of a happy set of circumstances where for the first time in the whole of their journey along the 630 miles over the months, somebody asked them about themselves and listened to them and didn't judge them, and then offered them a property to rent. And it was just, they had trusted that they would get to the end of this journey and the answers would come. And so that was their moment of joy. And like you, I've spoken with clients about enjoying the home that they have, the roof over their head. And even if it's only a corner of a room that they've cleared or they have exactly as they want it in that moment, celebrate that. And sometimes, as I'm sure you might have found, working with clients who maybe want to move because they're so overwhelmed by the amount of tasks in their home and they feel so disconnected with how they're living in their home. And then working with them, they say, no, I no longer want to move because I love my home now. I'm coming to it with refreshed eyes and I just find it so joyful. And habits that they've had, like retail therapy, they'd say, I don't even want to go out and buy anything because I'm just so happy here in this space, in this moment.
Yeah, I think joy is like one of the just a critical thing that we can have in our toolbox to, if we can cultivate joy and just the enjoyment of the tasks. So I always have quite good quality, like I have a really good quality floor duster, which just makes me like giggle because I spent probably a little bit too much money on this kind of bamboo, ethically fair traded, well designed floor duster, but it gives me such joy because it works really well. And whenever I have to do my kind of close clean in Scotland, if you live in a tenement, you can share close cleans like the corridor outside. And it just goes so smoothly. And on Clutter Chat the other week in our WhatsApp group, I posted the YouTube video from the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And he goes, and whistle while we work, da, 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 da. And it's just really cute as everyone's like dusting and polishing and having joy. And I'm like, we've got to do it. So we might as well do it with joy, because that's just so much happier. But when I think clients are so overwhelmed, or they've grown up not with the experience of household tasks it's been a task, it's been a burden, rather than something that's quite fun and can be collaborative, or can bring you can make it into a game, or it can be joyful. And if you've grown up in a household where it's been a burden or an expense, or it's not kind of valued, then it's hard to kind of change that mindset and start enjoying it. But I am a bit silly. I do get quite a lot of enjoyment, but there we go.
It's whatever makes a task joyful for you. I think I've said that to you before, Zem. I hated ironing. So I used to iron in my bikini because that made me laugh and put music on. And then I had kids and I just stopped ironing. So that works too.
You stopped wearing a bikini.
No, I still wear a bikini. But not in the house, only if I'm in the swimming pool or while swimming.
Yeah, I remember hearing a sort of a friend of mine. He would every Friday night he'd iron with a cocktail, he always that was his thing, and he kind of enjoyed it. So I wonder if any of our viewers have any experiences of sort of joyful household habits, whatever it is, like cleaning windows. What brings you kind of intense joy? Actually, interestingly, I find amongst all the people that have come through my workshops and Clutter Chat and clients, that many of them will describe themselves or as having OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorders, which I always think is almost an obsessive compulsive order, because they love things in order and something which is really like shiny or clear with clear lines. And I think what is most distressing is when their home isn't like that, but they actually love. So get a lot of joy from a very well ordered CD box, but it's just getting to that point. But so we work with that with them, and they just love it, because then they've got this wonderful display that is just what they want, and there is a certain joy in that order.
Yeah, I think sometimes certain parts of the action people get stuck in. I've worked with clients who've bought a beautiful Dyson Hoover, and then it's sat in a box for 6 months, and they have their old Hoover, which is heavy and difficult to use and doesn't work properly. So they don't want to Hoover their home, but they have this new Hoover sitting there. But there's a resistance to thinking, I'll let go of the old Hoover. I'm going to open this new Hoover and I'm going to use it. And so just going in and saying, do you think you might like to open this today? Will we do it together? And we think about together what you would like to happen with your old Hoover. Do you feel you would be able to phone and get it uplifted, or would you like me to take it somewhere to donate it? And it's just just that next step. People can become stuck in it. We all can. Tasks that challenge us or that we don't enjoy as much, we can become a bit stuck in.
And I think also joy is best done together with joy is cultivated or maximized when you're with other people, or can be. And I'm wondering if this might be a nice segue into the other poem that you
Yes,
suggested I
I'll
read
read that.
out. But I think also what you were saying about together and working with clients together really responds well to the text we got through, about why is it that some people find it hard to declutter, yet they can if you help them. And I think one of the answers is about doing things together. And it's about finding the right person or having the right relationship with that person
Yes.
to be able to work together. And one of my questions that I kind of come out of humanity with, why is it that we have, like in our lifetimes, like twice as many people in the world in my lifetime, and yet we're lonelier? Why is it that there are more and more people and we're lonelier? And I think part of it is just learning how to work together. And I feel that there's almost a real, people want it, they kind of have the loneliness but don't necessarily have the tools, know how to, because I think where many of us have lost that, being wanting and being told to be so independent all the time. It's so very hard.
I think it's how we're connecting with other people and what feels right in that moment, how much time, or whether it's a text or a phone call. And this poem, I'm happy to read this out, Zem.
Yeah, do you want? I'll pop it on the share screen.
It's called Dust If You Must, and it's from one of my best friends. We've been best friends since we were 14, and that's 35 years. And when I was saying I was having a week of holiday, she sent me this poem, which I just loved. Dust if you must, but wouldn't it be better to paint a picture or write a letter? Bake a cake or plant a seed. Ponder the difference between want and need. Dust if you must, but there's not much time, with rivers to swim and mountains to climb, music to hear and books to read, friends to cherish and life to lead. Dust if you must, but the world's out there, with sun in your eyes, the wind in your hair, a flurry of snow, a shower of rain, this day will not come round again. Dust if you must, but bear in mind, old age will come and it's not kind. And when you go, and go you must, you yourself will make more dust. And it's by Rose Milligan, and it's just such a beautiful poem. And my son, during lockdown, well, during the holiday, that's another thing we did together, is he wrote a letter and we went to the post office and he posted it. And all of these lesser enjoyed skills that certainly his generation and sometimes our generation, I've never written as many letters as during lockdown in years. And that has something to do with what you were saying, Zem, that when we go and we're dust, that everything becomes renewed in a different way. Nothing is lost. Things are just changed and different.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the transformation, isn't it? It's how we continue with change, and how we respond and work with and through change. And this is, an incredible moment in everybody on this earth is having an incredible moment at this point in time. Another thing, you spoke about posts, something that brings me a lot of joy. So some people may call this clutter. My partner would probably call this clutter. I think it's lovely. And it's a little little post box. I love the British Postal Service. I think it's amazing. Like, you can go to like the furthest corner of Scotland, and scribbled away in a hedge is a little post box, and you go post a letter and it can end up in Lesotho, and I just find it for whatever pence. And I just find it amazing. And and that was reaffirmed for me when our local post office during lockdown, thankfully it's reopened like to full hours, but it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. It was horrendous. Honestly, there was a queue around the block, and I was like, I can't, I need to be able to post, because I've always enjoyed it. I did art foundation years ago, and then one of my art projects was I tried to post a bit of toast. I just thought, see if it would land, so I kind of glued a bit of toast, put an address on it. Once, I'm off on one now, once I had an overburden of postcards I didn't know what to do with. I'd sent them to all I could send them to, And so I just got a postcard, didn't put a stamp on it, but wrote, "To whoever gets this, I hope you have a lovely, lovely day."
Oh,
Dear postal service worker, to whoever picks this up, please have it, and I hope you have a lovely day. That's all I could do.
that is really beautiful. That is really
Well,
lovely.
it's what do you do with an abundance of stuff? I just kind of gave it out to whoever. Right, we have Elaine has finished her course. She is in the waiting room, so I'll invite her in. But also we have a message on the live chat. And it's from Jocelyn, and she says, "I felt freest when I have been doing field work abroad." And she's an anthropologist, I think, and have had comparatively little stuff with me. I was happy as I could be a new me. Do whatever I wanted to and go wherever I wanted. So there's kind of this freedom and this liberation. Oh my goodness, loads of stuff are coming up now. Right, okay, I'm going to let Elaine in, and I'll let Clara figure out what's going on in the live chat on YouTube.
So David's sharing with us, he's saying Zem, the post relies on unique numbering of each location, the forerunner to today's URLs. And thanks for that, David. And Jocelyn's saying she subscribes to the Dust If You Must poem. The problem is she does it too little, as she just loves being out in nature and also meeting people. I guess I just need to find the right balance. So yeah,
and I think it's overwhelming. Like, I have less stuff as well, because there's less cleaning. It doesn't take me long to do the floor because it's clear. It doesn't take me long to, I mean, I've got an extra person in the flat during lockdown, and honestly there's not much cleaning. I mean, I suppose we're not going in and out all the time, but it's fairly minimal. So here we go. Elaine, sorry, we're yaddering on. Welcome, loving the t-shirts. How have you been? Where have you been? Anyway, why weren't you here at 11? What was that about?
Well, I wasn't here at 11 because I've been on a positive psychology course.
Oh, bloody hell. That's
so,
us.
So I'm ready to go.
Bonjour, like the t-shirt.
Bonjour, comment ça va, tout le monde?
So what did you learn from this positive psychology course?
Quite a lot of the stuff that I'm using already.
And also, all committed depressives, please close your ears.
Really quite a lot of stuff that I'm using already, but just, refreshing. It's always good to have a growth mindset. We talk about growth mindset when we talk to our clients. And what that means is just always being open to taking on new things and new ideas. So there's a few new ideas about positive psychology out there, so I wanted to refresh myself with a wee bit of that, and it was good. Yeah, very nice. Just different language that you can use to help people come out of that negative mindset. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Absolutely loved it.
You're looking very motivated.
I am very motivated this week. Yes, I'm feeling good this week. I was out for a 7.6 kilometer walk yesterday, and got another one planned this afternoon. So yeah, feeling good. Sun was shining yesterday. It's a wee bit cloudy today. The window cleaners have just arrived, so I may have a man just right in front of me in a minute, but hopefully we might get through this before.
Look at you.
Mr. McKinley's upstairs. Dr. Zem, don't say things like that.
Well, we've been discussing some very crucial and critical topics about homelessness and blackberries. Have you read the Salt Path that Clara mentioned?
No, I haven't. So she's highlighted that. So I'll, maybe pick that up at some point.
Well, there's a last quote that we haven't finished, but I think it ties in nicely with what you just said about kind of having an open mind. So are you guys happy for me to read it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's the last one. I think. I might get overexcited. Now then, here we go. Right. So, at last I understood what homelessness had done for me. It had taken every material thing that I had and left me stripped bare, a blank page at the end of a partly written book. It had also given me a choice, either to leave that page blank or to keep writing the story with hope. I chose hope. I had no idea what the future would bring, how it would be shaped by the months spent living wild on the coast path, All I knew was that we were lightly salted blackberries hanging in the last of the summer sun, and this perfect moment was the only one we needed.
Wow.
That's a bit beautiful, isn't it?
It is, yeah, lovely. Yeah. Really nice, really nice. Yeah, I'll need to pick that up. Definitely have a wee read of that.
Yeah,
some point.
I mean, Elaine, do you feel that, like, I was talking to one of my good friends from school who, as lockdown began, and she's a psychologist in the NHS, and she was doing a lot of telephone appointments, and she said that there was a split in her clients, like some who had a history of being in kind of incredibly low, incredibly depressed, were actually quite positive. And others who she thought would be more resilient weren't so. And bless her, she was at home trying to home educate 2 kids and do this, and she's like, I need a break. I need the support. But it's interesting how people, the choice, how we react to take on. And I wonder if from your positive psychology course, if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's an interesting theory out there that the people who struggled when we weren't in lockdown actually are better equipped for coping when we are in lockdown, which is, because they know they are aware of what stress is like in their body, whereas some of us who haven't experienced that don't know what's going on, and suddenly we've got this feeling and we think, what's that? But quite a lot of people who have already experienced that are able to tap into that and have sometimes developed strategies to take themselves through that. So that's an interesting thing. And yeah, I think what your friend has said as well, some people are coping better on the screen to screen, connection, rather than the face-to-face or the physical connection. And then some of us are really struggling and need the physical connection. I mean, my son just arrived 5 minutes ago and I couldn't actually go and see him because I knew I had these 2 things, and I'm waving and I'm thinking, I just want to be near. But anyway, he was through the window, gave me a wave. But yeah, it's an interesting thing how the mind mind and body, actually, because what we were talking about also on that call was about how our bodies react to different situations. And when we go into clients, I certainly can see people's reactions on their face, how their bodies are, and we can get a sense of how they're feeling. Whereas here we've got to rely really on talking directly at them and them giving us the right answers back. So again, that's really, for doing this type of coaching, we need to be using the right type of language to get the right expressions and things like that out that we are not seeing in the physical body.
Yeah, I think, and one of our previous talkers, interviewees, suffered with chronic conditions, and the chronic condition. And I think I heard on the radio as well a program about how people with chronic conditions, actually, for some of them, they've got all the skills. And I know for myself, I've had like really kind of tough kind of mobility, sort of lower back issues over the past couple of years. And actually the break of lockdown, where I haven't had to physically go anywhere, which before has always been, can I do it? What stretches do I need to do after? What pain meds do I need to take? How am I going to manage it? I've no longer had to consider that. I just have to sit here with a cup of coffee, and I have time to do my Pilates exercises in the morning. So actually it's been a wonderful relief for me. And I think other people who have had chronic conditions, either gone through them or still with them, have had more tools in their toolkit to cope with lockdown.
Yeah, I think it's actually, I think I watched Loose Women actually I think it was the other week, and Denise Williams was on Loose Women, and she was saying that she suffers from anxiety quite a bit. And she said, actually, she has been able to help other people who have come to her and said, how do you cope with this? What strategies do you use? And so, it's a very interesting topic, actually, to find out how we all adapt and cope with different stresses in life.
And I think Clara has a solution as well to the week 9 blues. Clara, what is your solution to the week 9 blues?
I'm not quite sure if is this where you want me to talk about gardening?
Exactly, that's the one. Come on, you should have got the telepathic message on that one.
Sorry. I was busy thinking about what Elaine had said there. Very interesting.
It is connected. It is connected.
Yeah. So it's a lovely quote by Audrey Hepburn. To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. And certainly I've never spent as much time in my garden as I have during lockdown. And I was showing Zem, I've got the scar to the wound to prove that. And I was saying as well that I loved one of my friends, the one who sent me the poem actually, she took, can you see that? Let's get this bigger. Oh goodness. She took this piece of ground and she did this with it over lockdown. Isn't that beautiful? And the stone path work there, she has put a bucket and a note saying to passers-by, because it's on the route to Lynn Park, to a lovely walk, saying if you have any old watches, chipped or broken pottery, interesting items, please put it in and I'll include it in the mosaic. She's an artist, so she's going to make a mosaic. And I broke 2 of my favourite bits of crockery. So instead of being upset about that, I was thinking, oh, I'll give it to her and I can then see it for years more in her beautiful mosaic she'll be making. So yeah, gardening I think is a great one. And certainly during lockdown, I think Countryfile is one of the few programmes other than Gogglebox that's continued to be filmed and has had such a high audience and enjoyment for people to feel connected.
Elaine?
I've had to switch myself off there because my window cleaner's come. So I'm going to move rooms. So come off me so I don't shiggle along as I take you through my house, because I'm going to have to move to the back of the house because this man is right at the window.
Okay, well, do we get to see your house as you shiggle around?
Oh, no.
Okay, what I'll do
You'll just get to see me if I walk slowly.
Yay!
What I was going to say was that very much in the hygge and the log-on lifestyle is that actual, gardening and nature is key to keeping that lovely balance in your life. And there is a scientific fact. I'm trying to move slowly so I don't make everybody feel sick.
It's like Challenge Annika, except
it is. Challenge Annika. Here I am. Yes.
Start to go along.
Yeah. Yes. So there's a scientific study that was about depression actually, and it says that if you walk in nature, your mind actually your eyes take on obviously the vision of the vista that you're walking in, and actually it can affect your brain, and it's to do with the actual shapes that you're walking past. So the rolling countryside, the bushes, the trees, all that, your mind actually can take that and it calms your mind. So mindful walking is a very good thing for depression and mental illness. And gardening as well, so that you're focusing on one thing. And also, if you're using tools when you're gardening, you want to be very focused. So you have to be, you don't want to take your finger off while you're cutting your roses, or what you've done there, Clara. So yeah, there is scientific study that this is, it's a very calming thing to do. And as you say, that your friend there has made a lovely bit of garden out of what looked like nothing at one point. And we take a lot of pleasure in doing gardening. We are very much in our gardens, both my husband and I. And in fact, my husband has adopted our local train station. It's a thing that you can do through ScotRail, and so we look after White Craig's train station. And the impact that that has made on passengers going on to the train is tremendous, because everybody says, oh, it's lovely, it's full of flowers, what a lovely place to stand. I feel de-stressed before I get on the train to go to work, although people won't be doing that possibly for a while. But it made a fantastic impact on the community. And it gives my husband absolute great pleasure in doing it. And he's giving up his time, you know, it's volunteering, but it's just, so many people have commented on it. So working in nature or walking in nature or, you know, taking a little project and doing it, turning nothing into something, fantastic.
And I think also for those without a garden, you can bring the garden into your home. So do you recognize this plant, Elaine?
I do, yes, yeah.
Tell me about this plant.
So that's a peace lily. And what I do with a lot of my clients is I take a small peace lily with me when I go to see them or at the end of a job that we've done. And the peace lilies are great because they clear the air. They're a plant that clears the air. And so having that around the house means, A, you have to nurture it. So you have to take care of something, which is the first thing. And lots of people or lots of clients I work with on the coaching aspect, it's about nurturing something because you have to take care of it. So you take care of that, then you start to take care of yourself, then you're, you know, so it's one of those ripple effect things. But it's one of those plants, a peace lily is one of those plants that clears the air. So it's great to have in a home office. It's great to have in the kitchen. Wouldn't suggest in any plants in the bedroom because they take up too much of our lovely oxygen. But in other parts of the house, I have plants everywhere. We love it, and it's bringing nature indoors. And again, psychologically, it's great for you. The shape of the plant, the greenness of the plant, the aliveness of the plant.
And I think it's the tender care. So this you actually gave me, Elaine, which is nice. And in it, I've got one of my favorite other things. I showed people my my post box a while ago, and this is Kuan Yin, who is a Chinese goddess of compassion. And Kuan Yin's been with me for quite a long time. I actually picked her up at a Buddhist monastery in Hong Kong because I used to live in Hong Kong, and when I went back and I went to the Kuan Yin temple. And why I wanted to talk about her a little bit is because she was part of a herb garden that I planted where I used to live in the Forest of Dean. And some viewers may remember, but I decluttered my uncle's property, who died young at about 59 of cancer, and he left 3 sheds, a caravan, and an attic full of stuff. So that was the start of my kind of decluttering adventure. And he was also a bit of a big jobs man, really. And he'd put the washing machine in a shed outside, and it short circuited. So after, I mean, he was an absolutely lovely guy, but after he died, he did leave me with an electric bill for about £1,500 in this shed. Pulled down the shed, which also had an asbestos roof. So there was really not much happiness in this shed. But I pulled it down, and then I created a washing line around it. It was on the hillside in the Forest of Dean, and planted a herb garden, and Kuan Yin was in the herb garden, just kind of watching over. She's the goddess of compassion for many Chinese people. And just yesterday, I'm lucky enough to have a little patch of earth outside my flat, and I planted some herbs that I got from a local perennial nursery. So I've got some thyme and some lovely things, and it just reminded me of that transformation. And I think what Clara was either said or will be moving on to say is about how, you know, when you work with plants or in nature, you have a different sense of time and of waiting. And if we remember the sort of the Blackberry quote, you know, when is just right. And I think it's a real good, it's taught me a lot. So big up for Kuan Yin and for peace lilies.
Peace lilies.
I've got a Kuan Yin from you, Zem. She's here.
Oh, lovely. We can't quite see her. She's silhouetted, darling.
Oh, she's in my window with some flowers.
It's interesting how little objects like that can bring happiness. You know, when we were talking about meaningful objects and that, and I in my little sunroom conservatory bit there, I've got a chubby Buddha. It's one of the happy Buddhas, and he's got a lovely big chubby tummy in it. Sometimes I quite like to rub his wee tummy, you know, just to give him a wee touch. But yeah,
I think it's that thing about connection, isn't it? So we have had another comment from Leslie on the live chat, and she writes, if I can find it, has it just disappeared up the top?
Yes,
Love the poem. My best experience of spring cleaning was when sharing it with a pal. Sadly, she moved away. Spring cleaning has never been the same. And I think it's that connection of associations, that what we began with, that sense of belonging. So for me, Kuan Yin, Buddha, also my uncle was very attached to Kuan Yin, and I did some research. For some reason, he'd saved the name on his phone, and I had no idea why. So that was the start of my journey to then specifically going to the temple in Hong Kong to pick up the statue and have Kuan Yin around and learn her story of compassion. But it's all that connection. And then the herbs, and then being able to sort of connect with a friend in Lesotho who's planting out herbs as well and is trying to plant English lavender. And that just is like the global and then the personal and that connectedness. Yeah, it's just lovely.
It's great with children, you know, children who are feeling anxious and things like that. So often when I worked in education, we would take them outside, and especially children with ADHD, things like that, or autism, and just let them just touch the earth, you know, look at the plants, feel the different textures. And if you've got a bit of the veg garden, I've got tiny little veg things in here in the garden. And my strawberries are going crazy at the moment. So we were just saying we'll have a lovely little crop of strawberries. I think they're huge at the moment, and they're loving the sunshine. But something just as small as that, you know, having as you're saying, a pot on the windowsill, or things like that you can actually eat, that you've grown yourself and you can eat. There's all this pleasure in having all this connection to the food we eat. And again, that's like the decluttering of our lives. So we're taking the lifestyle aspect out, you know, in the community as well, and saying to people, possibly if you you know, remove something from your diet and pop in something a bit fresher, then that might be something where you could change. And that's the mindset thing again, the growth mindset, that it doesn't always have to be this. Sometimes it can be moved.
I mean, we just had a comment on the live chat, we're in danger of romanticizing nature. Well, it's by sort of tooth and claw, isn't it? So there's been incredible global destruction happening.
Absolutely.
With floods, with like the fires in Australia, you know, everything. And there's places around the world. So I think for me, engaging with nature actually teaches me that plants die, that different plants try and take over, or and it's about kind of try and work with. So David's saying from an urbanite's perspective, but I think also in Glasgow, we're very blessed with a lot of parks. So it's about getting the balance.
I think as well, there's something about nature, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can't be perfect because you're only part of something. You're putting in the time and slowing right down and working with, like, seeds, which you can get at the supermarket and grow. You don't have to be online to do it. You don't have to go to a garden centre. And so you're being forced to slow down, to focus in on a task. And when you're talking, Elaine, about ADHD, I've been doing an ADHD course online, and something that she said, which I love.
Just remind people what ADHD is, because some viewers might not know.
Deficit hyperactivity disorder. And there's also ADD, so attention deficit disorder. So that's without the physical hyperactivity, but there's still the restless brain, the busy brain. So I've been doing a course, which is great. And the lady says, don't think about it as perfectly done. because that will stop you from doing a task. Think about it, just do the task and think about it as perfect, done. So it's perfect because you've done it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I think there's something really joyful about that, about gardening.
That's an interesting thing that came up actually on that course that I've just been on, and it was about the language that we as professional organisers might use with our clients. And so a client phones us, we take them through a session, and then they phone us later and say that they've been able to achieve this goal. And often we say, well done, well done. But maybe we should say, well, that's great, you've achieved that, that's fantastic. So let's now expand on that and move up, because what to a certain extent is we don't want to set people up for them having, when feeling disappointed when they've not achieved a goal. So again, it's about language that we use, and we can use that with our children, we can use that in our relationships and things like that. It's about thinking before we speak slightly, but also, as you say, Clara, it's about achieving something for the moment, and then that's done and put aside. And then the next time we might achieve something that's slightly bigger, and that's great as well. But then there's always room for us achieving just a little bit more. And in sports psychology, that is obviously key, that, you get to a stage and then you have to build yourself up to then get to the next stage, which then you build yourself up to win that 100 meters, But it was interesting. So it's good, like for me, refreshing how I am speaking to clients as well. Positive psychology is a great thing. So, yeah.
I'm slightly moved to read a poem myself now. And it was, Clara, in the dust poem you read, I was just unhappy with the last sentence, which is like, we all go to dust. It was a little bit depressing for me. And there's this other poem by Edith Joy Scoville, which is about the death of flowers. And she writes about the tulip who just dies so extravagantly and beautifully and almost with joy. That I kind of told my friends that's how I actually want to die. And during lockdown, I was just so enamored by tulips. So we were fortunate enough to plant tulips out back as part of a community project last year, and they grew up during lockdown, and they were so beautiful. And then as they died, they were just incredible. So I had them on the kitchen table and started painting them, and doing pictures of them and sending them to friends. So I think this was kind of one of my first trial-y things. But I'm just going to, which I was moved to paint by a friend whose mum had died, and I just thought this is such a wonderful it was just so gorgeous. I was just so moved. Anyway, there's two bits of the poem. I'll just read the second bit, and it says, so it's by Edith Joy Scoville. Scoville, I may say that wrong, sorry. She's passed anyway, but apologies if I've got her surname wrong. The tears, and it's called The Death of Flowers. The tears of gum not flowing, I would choose the tulip's reckless way of going, whose petals answer light, altering by fractions, from closed to wide, from one through many perfections, till wrecked, flamboyant, strayed beyond recall, like flakes of fire, they piecemeal fall.
Oh, flakes of fire. That's beautiful then.
Isn't it gorgeous? And honestly, I was so moved by it. I had to sort of paint it and write it down. But yeah, and I think for me, that's what nature is. It teaches me about kind of imperfection, and actually imperfection is not, it's part of a process. It's just a part of change, and whether we call it perfection or not is a matter of judgment. So for me, a dying tulip is perfection in every stage.
Yeah. Margaret has asked before the show ended if I could show again Nina's garden. So this is a tenement flat. So she lives on the first floor, and her brother lives on the ground floor. So that was before, and this is after.
Oh yeah, hold it up as close as you can, Clara.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Great.
And she's got a beautiful, you can see it just there, the wee it's a rainbow that she's made, but it's a beautiful, it's giving so many people so much pleasure. And she said it's kept her sane. She's an artist and she's moved her classes online through Zoom through the lockdown, but she said that the garden's keeping her sane because she lives on her own and she just felt so isolated to begin with.
Yeah, and the where I live in Glasgow, which is a place called Govan Hill, there's quite a lot of really good charities and support networks out there, and I've just been a happy recipient of some seeds and plants to grow on my windowsill, which were a pass on from a friend who goes to one of the groups and was given all of these plants and to inspire them to grow and to be connected. And I'm so pleased that next week we're going to have one of our kind of Govan Hill's key community workers, Blanche, coming on to talk about her experiences in Govan Hill and of social justice and of upcycling. And we've all been, as in Clara, Elaine and I, have all been part of sort of decluttering workshops that Blanche has supported in a wonderful place called Rags to Riches. So I'm actually just going to share the screen of Rags to Riches. And if one of you want to just sort of talk about what we've done there before and how maybe what we're going to move on to talk about, how stuff relates to global and social justice and that. So I'm going to share the screen.
We've done a few sessions in Rags to Riches, and basically it was just a drop-in for anybody who had any problems getting rid of or donating their items that they wanted to get rid of, and B, finding sources where more valuable items could go. And in fact, we had a lovely lady who came in, and I think her mum was a writer, Sarah, and her mum had written all these books, but she wanted to know how she could distribute these books, basically. So we kind of helped her look at how that might happen. But Rags to Riches is brilliant because Rags to Riches is looking at taking unwanted items or fabrics or metals or anything like that and transforming them into fantastic things. And it's like, is the shop still there, Zem, or what's happened with the shop?
No, unfortunately the shop front has closed, but they have in the deep end, which is sort of a big warehouse area, so they're keeping on doing projects. So during lockdown they were making PPE for staff, and realized actually how hard it is, you know, to get that, and all the labor that we're kind of reliant on, cheap labor in other countries. Actually, it's blooming really hard work and really skilled. So looking forward to Blanche giving us some insight into that and her work in one of the most multicultural areas in Scotland. I think it is, if not one of the most diverse.
I loved, there was one thing I saw in the shop, and it was a skirt, a mini skirt, and it was made of the ring pull cans from the Coke or the Coca-Cola.
Oh, Clara has
like
it.
And it was made from all these, it was an amazing thing. What were the other things I was thinking of? The fire hose.
Oh, the wallets?
The wallets from half fire hoses. Oh yeah, so there's a bracelet.
I don't have the skirt, but here's the bracelet. It's so light, but it's made from the ring pulls, and looks quite chunky on, but it's so light. I love it. It gives me such joy. I actually tried to order a necklace during lockdown of it, but they've had to, not from Rags to Riches, I think it was called Purple Cafe or something, but they're shut for lockdown. But yeah, that's one of their things.
Yeah, it's amazing all the things that they could use.
Macrame necklaces and macrame plant holders. And Sarah, who you mentioned, Elaine, she came in with the thought of she doesn't like how much tights go to landfill. And so we had a tights amnesty with Rags to Riches where people would bring in their tights, and she makes bags, shopping bags out of them, plant holders, because they're really strong. It didn't matter if the tights were laddered, ripped, and she was going on to teach workshops.
Yeah, that's right. She was going to do a project, I think, where I've got a link to schools in the area, and we were, before all this, we were going to try and get a workshop going, and some of the teachers would come from the schools and they would teach them how to crochet, and then they would take it back and the children would learn how to do it. So these are great, also great skills that can be passed on as well. In fact, one of my clients, actually Chrissy, who was on, I think Chrissy was crocheting little crocheted sort of patches that you could, the nurses could put onto their masks to stop their ears being sore with the elastic round their ears. I think she said to me she was doing that. So it's interesting how we can, you know, repurpose what we know how to do and into another.
Right, ladies, we have we're up for time for our hour today, and to let viewers know that this is our second to last Clutter Talk. So next week will be our final one, where, as I said, I think we'll be talking about social justice, about upcycling, about how our stuff is connected to the global world, and if time, we'll have maybe a brief recap of what we've done in our favourite moments during this 12-part series. There is also still space on our Strathclyde University Future Learnings workshop. So we can post the link for that. And there's only a couple of places, but that's starting 20th of July, I think. Yep. So farewell from me, Dr. Zen Moffat of Insightful Moves, and from Clara. Say who you are.
Clara from Joy of Space.
And Elaine.
Elaine from Clear Mountain Decluttering and Lifestyle Organising.
Yay! Cheerio, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.